was hospice time also, wasn't it? What about Charles? Charles wasn't in hospice, was he? He died of COVID. He died of Yeah, all microphones on? Okay.
The ultimate power is back there, isn't it?
Yep.
Absolute power corrupts absolutely.
Gina, when we go to the news, would you bring some tissue out? But not before we go to the news. I've had this plug nose on and off. I haven't had it. No. I spent 40 days on a COVID ward. Well, good evening and welcome to Wake Up. Hey, who's the new guy?
He looks like
Hey,
Rick.
careful.
I think he looks like a Rick. You're a Rick, right?
I'm a Rick. I've been
Nice to meet you, Rick.
for a long time.
Okay.
Who are you?
Or you can call me Richard, but only the IRS does that, so please don't.
Okay. Now, Rick, you're actually a chaplain with hospice.
Correct.
And how long have you been with hospice?
I've been with them about a year and a half.
About a year and a half. Okay. And we're going to discuss hospice in a little bit itself. But you're are you a retired minister or a minister changed, shifted?
Yes, all of the above. I haven't really retired. I have pastored before. I've been a music director a lot of my life. I still work and do a lot of services. Being a chaplain, I've been a chaplain for almost 50 years in different ways. But right now, I do not pastor a church. My ministry is hospice and helping those patients.
Okay, we're going to discuss that in a moment. But hospice, you're talking about Sangre de Cristos.
Correct.
Hospice.
Sangre de Cristo, yes.
Okay. And am I correct to throw the hospice for all of southern Colorado?
They cover all the way from over to La Junta, to Canyon City, and south to Trinidad. Pueblo is about as far north as we go.
Okay. And it's a nonprofit corporation?
Correct?
Okay. 501c3?
Yes.
In case you want to make some donations? Okay.
Yes.
And are you guys strictly humanitarian aid or religious?
Yes. We're a little,
Okay.
because when we do what we need to do for a patient, the government looks at not only what we do medically, but they do look at our religious benefit to the patient also.
Wow. We're going to learn more about hospice in just a moment.
Okay.
But right now, in order that we can have more time together uninterrupted, not that our news lady is an interruption, mind you. Okay. But we're going to go ahead and tend to the news and come back. We're going to ask you some questions about hospice, how people get involved, exactly what you do, and how you do it.
Sounds good.
Okay. But right now, here's Becky.
Thank you, Rabbi and Casey, and welcome to tonight's In the News segment. We start off with an article from the Air Force Times. Apparently,
We're muted.
North Korea has been secretly sending artillery shells to Russia.
Okay.
The rounds come from old weapons that Korea is placing. While the National Security Council doesn't know how many rounds North Korea is sending, it believes it is a significant amount. There is a question about the quality of the rounds because of their age. The U.S. is monitoring activities to discover whether the weapons were received and what, if anything, should be done about it. Russia has been using Iranian drones to attack Ukraine's power stations and civilian infrastructure. National Security Council spokesman John Kirby stated that Putin is feeling economically isolated and he continues to lose momentum. North Korea is remaining active, having fired around 100 artillery shells into a buffer zone between North and South Korea. After what was dubbed a reckless launch of at least 23 short-range surface-to-surface ballistic missiles, the White House has affirmed its willingness to give military aid to Ukraine. Have you ever heard of the Climate Justice 10 Commandments? Israel 365 News reported on just that. Rabbi Jonathan Nerel, a Portuguese native, is the founder and executive director of the Interfaith Center for Sustainable Development, which was founded in Jerusalem. Since 2008, Nerel has been speaking on the obligation of Jews and, more recently to the world, to maintain the ecology of the earth. Since that time, Nerel has spoken at churches, mosques, synagogues, and in seminaries about his ecology agenda. This year, more than 40,000 religious and business leaders of all faiths, including over 100 world leaders, gathered in the Sinai Desert for a UN conference on climate change. Nerel and a group of faith leaders are exploring a faith-based global initiative path to the ecological crisis by encouraging what he calls the 10 Principles for Climate Justice. Nerral stated that the Sinai Desert is the essential location because it is where the collective consciousness of Christianity, Judaism, Islam, and others received God's message. Because of Egyptian security concerns, only a small group of faith leaders will actually ascend Jabal Mus, the traditional location of Mount Sinai. The remainder of the conference will be held in London, with concurrent events held around the world. Nerral called the event a transformative moment to protect our environment. He also stated that, quote, "We need to switch from greed, short-term thinking, and individualistic behavior to spiritual satisfaction, long-term thinking, and altruism," end quote. And he noted that if we succeed, we will manifest a new earth with God's help. In other news, the Jerusalem Post reported that Uncle Haji has passed away at the age of 94. Uncle Haji, a name of endearment given by the local townspeople, was a loner, a hermit who lived in Iran. Uncle Haji was traumatized at a young age and had some questionable habits. No one knows exactly what happened, but Haji stopped bathing. He believed soap and water would cause disease. He slept in a dugout hole in the ground during the summer and in a doorless concrete block structure during the winter. When he wanted a haircut, he would burn his hair off with fire. He also believed that eating fresh food was harmful. Haji ate roadkill, and rotten porcupine was his favorite. He drank 5 liters of water daily. His water came from puddles, and his cup was a rusty oil can. He smoked a pipe of animal excrement. He lived for over 60 years this way. The residents of Haji's hometown finally convinced him to take a bath. He died a few months later. Haji was said to have been very healthy in spite of his rough looks and questionable diet. Israel's 365 News reported about the religious Zionist Party. It seems that Ohad Tal and Bezalel Smotrich wanted to change the way the diaspora Jews connect with Israeli Jews. The party described diaspora challenges of apathy toward Jewish identity, detachment from Zionism, the struggle to maintain communal institutions and schools, and the negative impact of anti-Semitism, BDS, and delegitimization of Israel in schools and on college campuses. Israeli Jews don't face these difficulties and don't truly recognize the struggles of the diaspora Jews. The party wants to educate Israeli Jews to garner compassion for diaspora Jews. The party said that diaspora Jews, on the other hand, aren't steeped in traditional Jewish and Zionist values like Israeli Jews are. They don't understand the need for close camaraderie with Israeli Jews. The party wants to help establish those values and connect the diaspora with Israel. It plans to assess the possibility of opening English-speaking high schools in Israel with the intent to bring students to Israel. The party also wants to reduce the bureaucratic red tape for those who want to transfer their academic degrees and professional licenses, and amend local and international tax statutes and agreements to ensure continuing social benefits and pensions without double taxation. There's even talk of sending teachers and families out into the world, otherwise known as shlichut. Tal would like to see immigrants being placed in leadership positions, including government, stating that they could offer improved worldviews, understanding, and ideas. Israel 365 News also reported that back in the U.S., a conservative advocacy group, America First Legal, filed a Freedom of Information Act requesting a probe into State Department funding of the Palestinian Authority. In 2017, the U.S. created the Taylor Force Act, which suspended Palestinian Authority funding if the PA paid monies to terrorists. When Biden got into office, he reinstated the PA funding even if they supported terrorists. A non-public State Department report to Congress found that the Palestinian government is paying terrorists, and the U.S. is paying hundreds of millions of taxpayer dollars into projects that directly benefit both the Palestinian Authority and Hamas. The America First Legal Group believes that the money is funding projects that are intended to sabotage Israel's sovereignty. The Biden administration is working to open a U.S. consulate for Palestinians in eastern Jerusalem. With the consulate located in eastern Jerusalem, it will be a de facto embassy to the Palestinian Authority from inside Jerusalem and would enable the PA to establish a strong presence in Jerusalem. The Jewish Journal reported on a Wellesley College student paper editorial board endorsed a mapping project of Jewish sites around Massachusetts. The project, which included names and information of its targets and about the victims and some of their staff, was created by BDS supporters saying that the institutions on the map should be dismantled. The Educational Board called the project a vital service, stating that collecting, tracing, and publishing data and financial and political activity about institutions such as Jewish groups, synagogues, schools, police departments, and others were incredibly important. The project mentioned the ethnic cleansing of the Jewish community and details how to support the colonization and liberation of Palestinians. Tufts University President Tony Monaco stated that the college was suspending all sports team activities until a thorough investigation was completed. Monaco expressed solidarity with Jewish students and stated that anti-Semitism will not be tolerated at the university and that Tufts would recommit to building the community. CNBC reports that the Fed is continuing to increase interest rates. The seventh rate increase, including 4 75% point increases, was just imposed. What this means is that borrowing is more expensive because the base cost of items is higher, and there is a higher interest rate that you have to pay when you're repaying the loan. For instance, car loans are currently 5.63%, the highest in 11 years. Student loans are 4.99%, and that's up from 2.75% in the 2020 and 2021 school years. Reuters calls it the, quote, swiftest tightening of U.S. monetary policy in 40 years, end quote. As well, the Fed will raise rates in smaller increments in the future. According to Fed Chair Jerome Powell, the target fund rate should be sufficiently restrictive enough to slow inflation. Last but not least is an article from faithfullycountry.com. Meet Meryl and Taco. Each dog was brought into the Rocket Dog Rescue Center by different owners. They were terrified. Both were put into the same kennel, hoping they would get along. They did. Right away, Taco, the little Chihuahua, snuggled up with the big pit bull Meryl. They slowly began to play with each other and bonded in a way no one would be able to understand yet. Merrill started to change. He no longer wanted to play. He moved slower and slower. He appeared to be really sad, and he stopped eating. Taco never moved from Merrill's side and kept barking at shelter volunteers. The staff tried to take Merrill to the vet, but both dogs cried and screamed and seemed traumatized when they were separated. The staff finally decided to take both dogs to the vet. Both Merrill and Taco, the vet discovered that Merrill needed immediate surgery. Both Merrill and Taco carried on when they were separated, so the vet allowed Taco to stay for the surgery and through the recovery time that Merrill needed. When someone decided to adopt Merrill, they found him holding on to Taco and he would not let go. The man finally decided he could take both Merrill and Taco. Merrill and Taco sleep in the same bed, play together, eat from the same bowl, and love their human. They are finally home. Have you ever been so loved by someone that they refuse to let you go? If not, maybe you need to consider your relationship with Yeshua. He loved you so much that he took your crimes, immorality, offenses, and wrongdoing as his own. He washed and cleansed you so that you can stand before Hashem as an honorable person. Do you know others who need to hear the message of salvation? If so, won't you help us spread the word through our program, the Ingathering? If everyone watching this program gave even $5 a month, we could reach out and proclaim the gospel to a dying world in a greater way. That's it for tonight. Back to you, Rabbi and Casey.
Well, once again, we're here with our friend Rick from, Sagrada Crystal's Hospice. And we found out earlier it's a 501c3, it's a charity institution, and that you personally deal in the ministry of hospice.
Yes.
Okay?
Matter of fact, I won't deal in the medical end. I'm all just ministry.
Oh, so hospice has both medical and ministry involved.
Yes.
And is it just to your client, or is it to the family of the client? How's that work?
We try to incorporate as many of the family as we can. Most of the time when you go see a patient, there's someone there with them. And if they want to be part of it, we engage them. We let them be a part of everything we do. Sometimes they leave the room and they let us and the patient just spend our time. But there is no set. We welcome them if they want to be a part.
Okay. So my partner here and I were discussing earlier, okay, just who is the target service, the target audience, in essence, for hospice? I mean, how does one know if they're ready for hospice?
Well, let me give you a little bit of a background, and it kind of comes from a personal end. My wife had gotten sick, been about 2 years ago, and we thought she just had allergies, found out that she had ALS, which was going to take her life. So immediately we realized that we now had a different agenda. Even though with that disease you can have 10 years, we didn't know. So I had someone say to me, the first thing we need to do is place her in palliative care. Well, I'd never heard that word before. So
Palliative care.
Palliative care. And after she had been in palliative care for about 7 months, she went into hospice care. And you want me to go into the different parameters of those two things?
Briefly, yes.
Okay.
So I can understand there's a difference.
Yes. Well, palliative care is whenever you've gone to a doctor or a doctor has given you a disease diagnosis that is eventually probably going to take your life. Don't know when, but you still want to give it a good effort at trying to beat it. Palliative care can be an option because with palliative care you do not turn away any types of diagnosis, any types of treatments, But at the same time, when you go into palliative care, you bring in a lot of assistance that is free to the patient. The government actually takes care of a lot of things. When my wife had her problem, we had a feeding tube surgery, paid for that. She had a oxygen concentrator, paid for that. The medicine that she needed was paid for by the government. I mean, everything, because she was under palliative care, and we were not stopping every type of treatment we could find. When you go into hospice care is when a doctor has said that if the disease follows its natural progression, you have 6 months or less to live. And you are deciding that you're not going to go through all the treatments, whatever it is, you're going to stop with the aggressive treatments, and you're deciding that you're done with that. It does not mean you've quit trying to live. Matter of fact, we try to help people understand there is still a purpose. There's still a reason for them to be here. And many times because of that, it prolongs so much with their attitude and the ability to help them with pain. And so, but hospice care is when you have to decide that you're not going to do, like in a cancer case, you can't take chemo, radiation, you have to give up on those things. Other diseases have other types of treatment, so you just decide you're not going to do it.
You said 6 months,
Mm-hmm.
right? But is there a time limit afterwards for the family?
We continue, like let's say after 6 months, someone is not progressing like the doctor thought.
Mm-hmm.
They're still not doing well, but they're still being okay. We don't turn them away. The only time that we would ever turn a patient away is if they got so much better, which has happened, that they no longer qualify as a hospice patient. And because we are a 501c3, we have lots of government. We have a section of our establishment that is just for compliance, to make sure that we do what the government asks us to do. And one of those things is if a patient gets good enough that they are no longer qualified, they can actually graduate out of hospice care. So, but it can go on. I know I have patients that I've seen for 9-10 months.
Wow.
Because because when you take care of pain and you help a patient with peace and their mental health, it helps them fight off whatever is trying to take their life. And that's what we really try to do.
So you're in the comfort care business.
Definitely. Matter of fact, whether that's medical or spiritual, it is comfort. It is trying to manage pain, help them to have as good a quality of life as they can have for as long as they have. When I was a funeral director, I had families that would want to come meet with us because they said the doctor told us that our loved one wouldn't make it through the weekend. And we would tell them all the time, you aren't God. You don't know how long you have. But we would let them know, if you want to talk about things, we'll be glad to talk, but we can't do anything. You don't know, and we don't either.
So a couple of questions on the medical side.
Okay?
You actually have medical personnel, staff, and what type of staff do you have?
When a person is brought into, and by the way, 2 years ago we changed our name. We are Sangre de Cristo Community Care instead of hospice, and the reason is because we have so many other services that we have.
I should have read the pamphlet a little closer.
That's okay. Most people still know us as Sangre de Cristo Hospice, but we have grief therapists, we have music therapists, we have speech therapists, we have dietitians. We have so many different services we offer other than just hospice. That's why we changed our name. Now, what was your question?
So what type of
medical.
You have
That's
doctors and nurses or
That's
whatever?
right. Whenever a person comes into our care, they are offered about 7 different people that will come to see them. You have the doctor. A family can stay with their primary care physician if they want to, or we have a hospice doctor that does take care of them. We have a clinical nurse, a registered nurse that becomes their head, the chief of their care. Social worker comes to see them. A CNA will come to see them. They are assigned a chaplain. Now, in my case, if I go to see a family, I'll ask them, what religion are you? And I had a family just last week that said, really, we have no religion. We don't need you. Thank you for coming. So I'm okay. And I let them know, if you would like to change your mind, and I give them a card, say, here's my number, you can call. We have also, again, the music therapist, speech therapist, dietitians, nutritionists. I mean, all those can. And if a family requests any of those, they all come as a part of what we do. They can, like, for the chaplain, I've had some people that because their church was so involved with them, they really didn't feel they needed a chaplain. No problem. Some, because the family was caring for them so much, they didn't need the social worker. That's okay. But you are offered, about 6 or 7 different clinical helps in different areas.
So how does a person afford this? I mean, do we do a copay? I mean,
No. Hospice is totally funded by the federal government through Medicare or through insurance. If a person is younger and they have not qualified for Medicare and they also don't have insurance, we do help them. We don't turn them away. But mainly we are provided by filing it with Social Security with the Medicare division. That's why we have so many forms we have to fill out, because the government requires us. Every time I see a patient, I have to let them know, how are they doing peace-wise? Did you do anything spiritually for them? When you left them, did you feel they were in better position than when you started? And so there's a lot of, we have to do all that for the government. There is no cost to the family.
wow.
Is that for after services as well?
After services, we have a grief section. Now, obviously, as a chaplain, a lot of times when somebody passes, they will ask that the chaplain comes to see them.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, I will go. I can help them if they need to do a funeral service. Sometimes I'll just go and pray with the family. Sometimes I do more, depending, again, on their church and how much. But we do have a grief part. Every time someone passes, the family is given to the grief side of our bereavement section with a rating. By the rating, I mean like if they're doing well, everything's fine, they'll say this family will get a visit, but they're doing really well.
Is that the religious side or the medical that does the rating?
Medical side.
Okay.
The social worker is the one that usually does that
Gotcha.
rating. Now, I have input. In other words, if I get through going to meet with a family and I can see someone that's very distraught, I can let them know this is what I feel,
Okay.
but it's mainly on them. And if we see someone that's not at all good, that is given, and they get a phone call within 48 hours of when their loved one passes. And that's every family gets a phone call. If it's something that needs more care, we will give them another couple of weeks and call them again. And that is all, that there is no charge for that. Now, just so, because I'm sure there's people that have seen some of our fundraising events and different things. And the reason we have those is because that care is not refunded by the government. They do not cover whatever we do for a family after the fact. That comes through our donors, through people that give to Sangre de Cristo, so we can do other things. The only time that bereavement care, grief counseling, is a cost is if somebody needs some appointments to be set up, like for months at a time. There is a minimal charge, but our grief counselors will meet with them for several sessions. We have grief groups that cover everything, all kinds of different circumstances that are all free.
Now, you're aware that Roxanne is my second wife. I lost my first wife to cancer.
Yeah.
And it was Sangre de Cristo that actually came and did a lot of the care at the end, and greatly appreciated. Now, side note, we actually can take phone calls. And if people had questions, would that be okay for them to call in and answer your questions?
Oh, please do.
And our telephone operator, alias the news lady, will also be more happy to communicate
Sure.
those questions to us.
And if there's something that they think of after we're done, they can still, even if they call here, I'll make sure they know my email address and my cell phone number, and I can talk after this.
Okay, excellent, excellent. So, how do you best see a church, or in the case here, a synagogue, how do you see us best working with hospice, excuse me, community care? Okay, and what role would we play? Are we limited in what role we play?
Well, you're the one that only limits it, or the family. Whenever, like I said, when I go to meet a person for the first time, one of my first things is I find out what faith they're of, and then I talk to them more specifically. Do you have a pastor, priest, rabbi? Do you have someone that you're close to that we could contact for you? And they'll either say, well, we've already contacted our family, or would you please? And in that case, we go right back, well, not right at that moment, but we'll let the church know that we have this person in our care. Some families don't have, I mean, they'll say that they're a part of a ministry, but they have had so little involvement with them that they almost feel like they don't have a right to call. And we will still try, like if someone called and said, well, we've gone to the synagogue, but we really haven't gone for a long time, we'd still call you. And we would say, we have a member of your church that has called us, and if you would like to reach out to them. So we try to engage the church as much as possible, whatever the church is. The one thing that we don't obviously do is we have no faith of our own. So we go and we try to help them with whatever they.
So you have no doctrine of your own.
We have no doctrine.
But the chaplains
Okay.
have faith.
We all have a faith, but we do not try to give that to the patient. We help them get closer to their faith and to their church family. And unless they don't have one, in that case, many of them say we're just non-denominational. In that case, we ask them, what would you like us to do? Do you want us to read scripture? I know we have one lady I know that is of Native American descent, that our chaplain goes in and reads nature stories and reads things that deal in their faith. So we do not try to ever lead someone down a different path.
So you really are into community care. Community care.
That's what we
right.
try to connect them with. I mean, in the Catholic faith, there is many things that families want a priest to do, and sometimes they don't have a priest. So we will contact a parish closest to where they live, ask if a priest would go by and see them. We try to help them with that, and we do that with any faith.
Okay.
I was just curious because this is all new for me. What would be the first thing I need to do if I were to contact you? I mean,
Well, I
I guess
get
it
more.
depends on the situation.
That's right. I got to be a little more specific. I'd say, why are you contacting us?
Right.
Let's say you have a good close family member that has gone to the doctor, and the doctor's just said, "I'm sorry, but there's nothing we can do for you." Okay. Then the conversation between you and that family member has to be, are you wanting to do anything aggressive?
Okay.
In that case, you are good for a palliative care discussion. And if you called us and maybe even said, I'm not sure what we qualify for, we would have someone come and meet with you. We have a full administrative team that actually brings people into our care, and they know all the questions. What does your doctor say? What do you feel? What are these signs? And they come away deciding where you best fit. And so you don't have to decide this is what we want to do. You can ask them, we're not sure what to do.
Gotcha.
It
From
helps.
there, you guys take it.
Yep.
At least lead.
Well, that's where because there's other questions you have to answer, but
True.
we at least know what questions to ask you,
Correct.
so you're not floundering.
I think that's why you brought these pamphlets, right?
Right.
The 6 questions to ask.
Yeah, because we were talking, and I've talked to so many people, nobody really wants to discuss this. They don't until they have to. And I was a funeral director for 8 years, and every time a family would come in, 9 times out of 10 they'd say, we've never done this before, so we don't know what to do. Well, some of the things are okay to not know, but some of the things are not good. And it's the same thing with hospice care and palliative care, and because it takes some prior planning. I know you have told me that as a church that you help people make decisions and do things towards whenever someone's going to pass. That's a great thing, because so many people don't have any clue what they're going to need.
I found that most people don't have what's called the 5 Wish program.
Right.
which is really very simple, very basic English on a lot of the end of life information needs to be done.
Right.
And very few actually have what we call a POA, a power of attorney, to help them with their finances and details and such. And even fewer actually have a will.
Right.
And so we try to help them there,
That's good.
get those things and get them in place.
Yeah, that's what happened with me when my wife got sick, and we started realizing we better start making some plans. And we started doing some things, and after a while I realized I should have known this as a funeral director, because I saw families going through the same kinds of issues. But we were given, we found out she had ALS in December, she passed away in August. So we had about 8 months to plan. But you talk about, we had no POA. We didn't have a personal representative, which is almost a critical thing to have. We didn't have a lot of our will in place. All these different things. When I've talked to families even in this realm, and I tell them, make sure you know if you have a family member that is military, have them know where their DD-214 is, because if you wait till someone
The
passes,
what? The what?
the DD-214, it is the discharge paper. When you are honorably discharged from the military, you always get that DD-214. A lot of guys know where theirs is. Sometimes they tell their family it's in the box in the closet. Well, that can be you just don't know. And when someone passes, if you don't have that in order,
That form.
you can't get military honors. You cannot be buried in a military cemetery. You cannot have the ritual team come and do a special service. You have to have that proof. And if you don't have it, it usually takes a couple of months to get. So if you're planning on doing a service pretty quickly, you can't get military honors.
That raises the question, though. Do you guys have a legal team or somebody who helps out with the legal paperwork, like the POA and stuff?
Not in Sangre. We
Okay.
tell them what they need to do,
Gotcha,
but we are
okay.
not legally qualified. I know that in my case, the first thing I did after my wife passed, and I learned, is I put together a will. I assigned a personal representative, because when you have that, because the power of it, the POA or the durable POA ceases when someone passes, and families come in and somebody says, "Here, I got this document. Let me make all the choices," and we tell them, "No, you don't have any more rights than every other family member, unless you're their personal rep. If the will assigns that, then you're good, and it's okay." And so I'm glad that there wasn't any dissension in my family when my wife passed away. So they knew, and being her husband, it fell to me, when you have multiple children or multiple equals, it can be
Or
wrong.
blended families.
Or blended families. Boy, that can be a challenge.
So do you guys play referee?
Never.
No? Okay.
Well,
But real quick, if you have a question, 719-248-6324. Feel free to text it in. We'll be more than happy to make sure your question gets to our good friend.
We do have one question.
uh-oh, just one?
Well, it's on the medical side.
Oh dear, okay.
And we might have mentioned this earlier.
It's a critical question.
Does Sangre de Cristo Community Care, gotta say that,
You're good
do-
with the Spanish roll in your R too, that was pretty good.
do you guys allow the patients to die peacefully, or do you guys assist them?
We do not assist. There is a thing that has now become more common. They call it MAID. It's called medical assistance in dying. We do not do that. If a patient wants to have that, we can tell them who they need to talk to, but we do not,
Okay.
we don't take a stand on it, and we do not facilitate it.
You just point them in the direction.
That's right. Because and I've had a couple of patients that did that, and it's a very involved, and I'm sure it's an important thing that they
Yes.
have to take a lot of consideration about. But no, we don't.
Handle that. Okay.
No.
So, we've talked a bit about the medical side. We've mentioned the spiritual side. Okay. Do you actually have volunteers that work with hospice, non-paid staff?
Yeah, I'm glad you said that, because one thing that we talk to, anytime we get a chance to go to a church especially, we let them know that we have, I heard that, matter of fact, I was in a meeting today with our volunteer coordinator. She said right now over the entire area we have 400 volunteers. Now some of those one time a month might go sit with someone in their home, maybe read some scripture. Sometimes they'll play gin rummy. Sometimes sometimes they'll just sit with them for a while, but they do that for an afternoon. They don't do it every single week. They don't have to give 30 hours a week or whatever. It is whatever they want. We have musical volunteers that will go in, and sometimes they will just sing a couple of songs with the patient. If they know how to play guitar, they'll take a guitar with them. But they just help them sing a few things. We have a music therapist who is a trained clinician that in that area. The volunteers, they just like to sing or be a part.
But most people don't realize that there's actually a field of study called music therapy.
Oh yes.
Okay.
And we have one young lady that is a licensed clinical therapist. Yeah, you have to go, just like being any type of a specialist. She has clinical hours she's put in. She's gone through, I'm not sure if it's 6 or I don't know how many years of schooling, but and then she comes out with an actual degree that goes through that. The volunteers don't need that. We do have a clearing. When a volunteer comes to us, we do vet them. We make sure that like in our realm, they have to be vaccinated, just because that's a government, in the medical field, it's a state mandated thing. But they get to go in, and like I said, some volunteers do nothing more than go by one time and just say, how you doing? How's your day? How's your family? Just be a friend.
Now, you also have some volunteers. And at first, it seemed a little strange to me. But you have volunteers who make teddy bears.
Yes. we have.
What's the deal with the teddy bears?
All right. Well, let me.
And how do we get one?
Yeah. How do you get one? Well, I see we have a question coming. Let me answer this real quickly. First of all, we have volunteers that put together teddy bears so that when a family has lost a loved one, that is a Care Bear that give them. Sometimes we even give them out before they have passed. And so it's just something that we have made them from some of the clothes of someone who has passed. There has been times when they've had a recording of the heartbeat of someone and placed it inside the teddy bear. So it's a lot of different things. We have a whole set of volunteers that make quilts, and all of the men and ladies that we have that are ex-military. We have a volunteer that goes to every single veteran and gives them a quilt and recognizes their military service.
Wow.
So and volunteers do so many different. Ladies that do crafts know what a cricket is. All I know is there's a bug that you see, but apparently to a lady that's crafty, that is an amazing machine.
A lady that's skilled.
Yes. And
Careful of crafty.
Yeah, yeah. But we have several ladies that put together different things with that for different people for different things. I saw we had a question. I don't know if you want to have.
Okay.
Yes.
Let's hear our question.
Okay, Bryn is asking, what do you do if a person's doctors and their family members believe it's time to enter into hospice care, but the patient isn't ready to face that and says they don't want hospice services? Now she has another question.
One at a time. Hang on.
Okay.
First of all, if the patient declines, we can't override the patient. They're the ones that tell us, like for chaplain visits, how often do you want a chaplain to come? I have some patients that say once a month is fine. Okay. I want them every week. Okay, but the patient dictates what that is. And it would be the same way if we go to see somebody and somebody's saying, I don't want hospice care, we stopped right there.
So the family member says, well, I don't want that preacher person talking to my mother. And mom says, I want to talk to the preacher.
Oh, we've had many. We've had many times where a patient has wanted more than the family was willing. We've had it go the other way too, where the patient did not want a chaplain and the family did, and we have to get permission from the patient. And sometimes, you know, I know there's this one man that just very much declared the fact that he had no faith. So one of our chaplains went in and started off by talking sports. And for I don't know how many visits, all they did was, I don't know if you want to talk about the Broncos. Should I mention that now? But anyway, they would just talk sports. And then eventually, one time, the chaplain said, "Before I leave, do you mind if I pray with you?" And he said, "Sure." So that's how he got. But no, it's patient driven.
Okay. And second question?
Okay, second question is, do you use therapy dogs?
You know, that's
a
interesting
good
because today, in the volunteer meeting I was in, we have some ladies that are going to start. We have had some people in the past that did have a therapy dog. Our hospice house, which is off of Pueblo Boulevard, we used to have a lady that regularly brought in her dog and would go around to different rooms, but she stopped, and now we have it starting up again.
Okay, now, a therapy dog is just a nice pet, or does the dog have to have some certification?
You know, that's it. I don't know. I know that obviously there has to be something that some kind of a questionnaire or something. You don't want to bring some dog that's going to run around and jump on the patient and everything else. So I know there's got to be some kind of clarity. I don't know what that is.
Okay. But it might be coming soon.
Yeah, I know they talked about it today because there's a couple of ladies that want to do it. So when a volunteer comes to us and says we'd like to talk to you about doing something, it's always brought up and pursued. Now, whether it comes to pass or not, we don't know for sure, but we know it's in the works.
Okay. Was that all the questions so far? Well, once again, you can always text us 719-248-6324. Now, how does a person become a chaplain in the context of San Gregorio Christos?
When a person applies to us, they obviously are first asked about their religious history, not their denomination, but where have they been trained? I know that if it's a young person, like let's say we have a young man or lady
Well,
that
it's
is,
like this one right here.
sure you go. I don't know how old Casey is, but I know the first thing that would ask him is where he's been educated, where what kind of experience do you have, where that kind of a thing. And obviously, if you just came and said, "I just want to be a chaplain," well, there might be some questions that we'd ask farther with that.
Yes.
But like in my case, because it's only been about a year and a half since I was brought in, I was brought before two different people. I first had to fill out the history, what I'd done before, just that kind of a thing. They like to have you have some type of a Bible college degree or theology of some type degree, even if it is 40 years ago like mine was. But then they go from there and like they started asking me situational questions. If somebody came to you and said this, what would you say? If you were asked to do this, how would you address it? And so there is a vetting process that goes into that.
What about volunteers who don't necessarily want to deal with members grieving or being in that environment, but they still want to help? Is there a way for them to do that?
I'm not sure I understand how. They don't want to be a part of any type of grieving.
They don't want to have to go out to and visit with the members, but
yes.
how can they still be
Like
involved?
the ladies that make the bears.
Is that the only thing they can do?
There is lots of different projects that we, like Veterans Day today, at least, or is it
Tomorrow.
Tomorrow, thank you. They used that little cricket and they made a bunch of poppies, and we give all of our veterans a little poppy that has a thank you for your service and everything. So they never will see the patient.
Gotcha.
But they put together those craft things. We have dinners that sometimes we'll give for certain groups, and they'll come and they'll just help put together, serve, or work behind a line, or there's a lot of things they do that aren't dealing with a patient directly.
Okay.
Now, you did miss one, though.
Miss,
A way they can volunteer and help.
how's that?
Uh-oh.
Oh,
Donations.
Oh, well, yes. Well, that I covered with that's, yes. And, yeah, and because we are a 501c3 and because we offer so many things outside of what the government pays for, that's where that comes from.
Okay. So
You can volunteer a donation anytime you want, Rabbi. I'll let you know.
should I make out to you?
No, don't make it up to me. That's all kinds of legal issues there.
Okay. So when you have a person who's the client in hospice, okay, I know comfort is a big deal. Would you comfort them with medication even if it makes them somewhat non-responsive?
That is up to the patient and the family. Sometimes if the patient is already in a bad state where they're just not doing well, and in order to give them some comfort, the medication might cause them to become a little drowsy or whatever, that's entirely up to the patient. As far as a chaplain, those are the hardest. When you go in and see someone and you can tell that they are not really understanding what you're doing, you try to do as much as you can that they will understand. I say the 23rd Psalm easily 50 times a week, because even a person who is not really responsive will recognize that psalm. I sing Amazing Grace, actually in the garden, I don't know how many times, because I had a lady that I saw today she was really asleep, but I could tell that as I quoted that psalm, there was some response. So you never know what someone can really hear and understand. So as far as the comfort level as a chaplain, we don't stop what we're doing even if there is no response. And if the family's there, we especially don't. We will redirect some of our conversation even to them and try to help.
So how many times does your team or yourself visit a single family per week
Oh,
or month? I mean,
that now as far as every different, they call them, the different care types that you have. We call them interventions, which has
Okay.
always been a weird word to me, but that's what I am. Part of my intervention is as a chaplain. Usually, the nurse will see them at least once a week, depending on their condition. The CNA could see them sometimes every day. They will, it depends on the level of care, how much care they need. Social workers, that's usually about once a week, sometimes even less than that, because the social worker comes in and really helps the family as much as they help the patient. They'll move furniture if they need to. They will take the dog for a walk. They do a lot of different things. As a chaplain, I don't usually come more than once a week unless the family requests someone's really not doing well and they really need something. And sometimes it's once a month.
did I ask how many chaplains you guys have?
No, you didn't. I was trying to come up with this total. I think we have 8. Some of them are part-time. And we have one gentleman that is in Canyon City specifically. We have a chaplain that goes to La Junta in that area specifically. We do cover Walsenburg and Trinidad, but we have a chaplain that comes out of Pueblo and does that. Matter of fact, if there's someone that would be interested in being a chaplain, we're always looking for ones to help us. But other than that, the rest of us are full-time, part-time. We have one man that is, we call it PRN, which means on request. And he goes and sees, like if someone passes at night and the family wants a chaplain, sort of like what you do for the police department.
On
Same,
call?
yes, on call.
Okay.
But so we have 8. And I hope I didn't miss one.
Are all your chaplains men?
No, we have 2 ladies. And that that isn't even part of the questioning. If
Gender's not an issue.
no, not at all.
Real quick, we still got a little time. If you've got a question, go ahead and text that in 719-248-6324. And by the way, if you would like the pamphlets that our good friends brought to us, you can always text us an email, an address, or you can actually call the local
Yeah.
office.
I left you a bunch.
Yes.
So,
Yes.
yes.
But I noticed on here, one of the questions, and I don't know, did you cover everything on here?
No, I don't know if I did or not.
But there
Go-
is
go ahead.
one question. What are the crucial signs of someone dealing with grief?
Okay, that's, the last two are really covered in that area because we do go past someone passing. And that is where our grief and our bereavement department really specializes. The main thing that we do cover in this pamphlet is there's a lot of general information because grief is so specific to every person. There is no time frame. There is no specific behavior. There is like some will not eat, some will overeat, some will not sleep, some will sleep all the time. There's no way. The key to recognizing something is the behavior that just isn't normal. And especially in some men, it's getting past the I'm fine. That's, not that I'm sure it's not specific to just men. Ladies can be there too, but it seems like men are the ones that tendency is just to say, oh, we're okay, everything's good. And that's when if you're a friend, you can pry a little bit. And then if you can tell there's something else, that's when you refer them to someone that's more trained to recognize. Because usually that kind of thing has to be brought out.
So if I am working with the family as the rabbi, and I notice that person X over here is abnormally acting out, I pretty much can nail it down to grief. Can I, on their behalf, call hospice?
Yes, you can, and we'd ask you a lot of questions because obviously if we called that person and they got mad, that would not be a good thing. But yes, you could call for them and you could talk to them. Matter of fact, I'm glad you brought that up because we have a couple of things. Like we have a fairly new place called the Caregiver Connection. We have a lady that specifically goes to see people that are taking care of someone. And so she'll go into the home and look at how they're doing. She analyzes how their stress level is, and she's been doing it for a long time. So even that's like you could say, we have a family I can tell that this person is not doing well. Would you at least go by and see them? I'm sure she would probably give them a call and say, would you mind if I came by? And no, they do not have to be in Sangre de Cristo care. Same thing with the grief.
Listen to you. You have people who go see this and see it. Do you have any non-contact services, like a hotline?
No,
Okay.
not that I know of. I think everything would, if you call our office, they will put you to someone that would then help you in that direction. But no, I don't know. The only hotline we have is our main number. And that will, no matter 24 hours a day, that will send you to whoever it is that you need.
Okay. I was just thinking, I hear all these things on the television, like especially for veterans who just came back from active duty
Right.
or go through depression, who might be suicidal. Call this number. I know Hospice Community Care had something similar. Contactless contact.
If someone, now this is where it might be a little outside of my realm, so I'm going to take a little step here. I know that like if someone was suffering from some type of PTSD and they called us, I'm sure that our counselors could talk to them, but they'd probably recognize very quickly that that's not their realm of expertise.
Mm-hmm.
And so then they would suggest that they call someone else or give them a number. I know that they have numbers that would funnel them. Ours is primarily for losing someone. That is our process. And so if somebody called us outside of that, we wouldn't say, I'm sorry, call somebody else and hang up. But we would have to send them somewhere else.
Okay.
Now, we're going to run over in just a few moments because we got a question or two. Am I correct?
Okay, our question is there support for the individual who is dying in helping them accept that they're dying before they start the hospice process?
That's one of the first things as a chaplain that we address. Because, not to make it technical, but one of the forms that I have to fill out asks, how is the patient dealing with the dying process? So when we first meet with them, we try to ask questions that will let them address how they're doing. And we have to, again, how are you doing with knowing that this could take your life? I'm doing just fine. Well, usually you can tell, okay, there's something more here. So then you, hopefully through more than just one visit, you can then take the time to, I hate to use the word pry, but that's what you're doing is you're trying to get them out of whatever fears they have and try to help them into their faith. The challenge, and in this sense, obviously I'm talking to you guys, the challenge is someone that has no faith. As a chaplain, that is a challenge for me. It's tough. It's tough to give them some type of faith when they don't have any. But that's not I can't try to talk them into a certain belief system. They came to me with something, and I have to fit inside of that.
So who normally makes that first contact? A chaplain or a social worker?
Whoever gets to, when a name is given, like before I came here tonight, noticed I have a new patient that I'm going to be seeing. I don't know if it'll be tomorrow. Sometimes I'll call the family and say, would you like me to come see your dad today? And they say, today's not a good day because the social worker's coming today, the nurse is coming today, everybody's coming today. Can you wait? I wait till Monday. Sometimes I'm the first one to go. It just it all depends on everybody's schedule. Like I already have a set of visits tomorrow that are already ready to go. If I am added one tomorrow, I have to see if I can give it the proper time, because the last thing I want to do is hurry from first to the next. You're sitting there talking to somebody and going, oh, you have anything else you need from me? And you're looking like you don't have time for them. So it's not determined really.
Do you have any other questions? Okay. Do you have any other questions?
I don't think so.
Okay.
Rabbi, do you have any questions?
Only a few.
Oh dear.
Roughly how many people does Sagrada Christos Community Care, how many people would you say they covered in the last year or so?
I know it's a couple of thousand. I know that at any one time, like lately I saw that we are right now serving 202 patients. That was as of...
At the moment.
At the moment. That was 3 days ago. And every day we have new coming and someone passing. So that fluctuates all over. But that's why, because I know that like last year, and I have this figure, that we served, I think it was 4,000 veterans. Now, they didn't all pass and, different things, but so we touch a lot of lives.
Now, 4,000 in a year from Colorado Springs south,
Right.
and say from Pueblo, almost to the state line.
From Canyon City to La Junta to Trinidad. And I'm sure the Trinidad office does help people in Raton, and I'm sure,
And
sure.
there's Walsenburg.
Walsenburg, we go to Walsenburg, we go to Levita, we go to Salida, even that way when you're going west. I mean, we cover a lot of ground.
So 4,000 people for your territory, though 4,000 is quite a bit.
Yeah.
That's a lot of territory.
And only 8 chaplains?
Yes. Now, we don't have all 4,000 at one time. That's like I said, we do have, as of Tuesday, there was 202 that our chaplains do serve. And I have had at one time almost 50 that I went to see. Now our census is down a little, so I'm down around 30 now. And some of those you see, like I said, once a week. Some of them are once a month. Some of them, thank you, but we don't need a chaplain. So you don't know how often you'll be going to see someone.
Okay.
We have another question.
Okay.
Okay.
And since we're over time already, we might as well push it.
Our question
Okay.
is?
The question is, how many miracle situations have you encountered?
Miracle?
situations. Of course,
Wow.
miracle is extending life, or miracle is in marvelous departures.
Yeah, now I will, to say, have I witnessed someone being healed in front of me? I never have. Personally, in my personal ministry, I might have, but not in the chaplaincy. However, seeing someone that when I first met them, they had no life. I mean, it was like they were last breath.
Already gone.
Already, yeah, it's pretty well,
At the
and all of
door.
a sudden they start getting better and they do better. Just in my own personal, I know I have had at least 5 people that have graduated out of hospice care to go back into their normal doctor and go back to not normal life, because they still obviously were not doing well, but they were not given that 6 months to live.
What would you say made that difference for them? Was it you guys being there, or their family, or prayers, or what do you think was the difference?
All of the above. I mean, I would love to say that hopefully what we did
Right.
had some input. I know that their family being around them, that's a big element. Their church being involved, that obviously has a big part of it. Some of them friends. Some of them, I mean, we've all heard the stories of a friend that came in and just got right in their face and say, you need to do better, and it was what they needed. We know how emotionally driven some of what happens to us is affected. And so if you can get someone to realize that they have a reason to live, it promotes, to use the word that was asked, healing.
At the very least, most likely longevity
Yes,
and quality of longevity.
right.
Okay. Well, Mr. Casey, I think we probably ought to wrap our program up.
We should.
Okay, and,
Let me say thank you.
Okay, go ahead.
For your, I mean, yes, I want, well, because I just so your people that are watching know, as chaplains, we want to make sure and do everything we can to help a ministry. And it was, about a month and a half ago that we had both of you guys come in, and we had all our chaplains sit down. They were either there or they were online, because we wanted to know how if someone came to us of the Jewish faith, what do we do to help them contact you, and what do we do and what do we not do? Because we try to be everything we can at that moment. And it was out of that meeting that, Casey, you contacted me and asked me to do this. So thank you guys very much.
Thank you for accepting.
Thank you for coming.
I enjoy this.
So, Mr. Casey, you're going to pray for us. But while you're at it, would you mind also including St. Gregory Christos Hospice and its staff? And please, this is the time of year for charity. Give up a little bit and see if God doesn't bless you.
Oh, he will.
Oh, yeah.
He will.
In the Jewish world, caring for the sick and the dying is a very big deal.
Mm-hmm.
And so this is with hospice. Okay. So you're on, Casey.
Okay. Lord God, we thank you for this time, this opportunity, Father, just to learn and to understand about a topic that we don't necessarily want to think about or talk about or deal with, but all must face it, Father, at some point or time, if not for ourselves, for others. Father, we ask for protection for the chaplains and the staff at Sangre de Cristo Community Care, Father, that you would provide them the strength, the integrity, Father, to continue doing what they do and how they do it, Father, to not do it for themselves, but to do it for those who are in need and for you. Father, for all the church, parishes, and synagogues out there, Father, may they get in contact with hospice community care centers, Father, and start becoming more involved, Father, or at least learn more, Father, and how to better prepare their individuals. Father, we ask for all things to be according to your will, and may they be pleasing before you. In Yeshua's name, amen.
Amen. Tomorrow, Ask Rabbi Friday, 9 o'clock, same place.